Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm Joe and today we're going to build this chicken coop. Now this design may look super familiar. Full disclosure, it's not my design. I bought the plans from Chris over at Third Coast Craftsman and I'll have a link for those plans in the description below. But this video is going to walk through how we went ahead and built this, and I'm also going to have a second video which I'll link up over in the corner that's going to go through what I like, what I don't like, and some changes I'm going to make as I go forward with this thing. Now, first thing I'll tell you is this thing wasn't built yesterday. This has actually been up for over a year now, so I've kind of learned in that time some of the things that work really well and some of the things that for me just need to be improved a little bit. But overall, that's the rooster chuckles. Overall, super happy with the design, function, and Chris's plans are great. So I highly recommend if you're looking for a chicken coop and you happen to like the looks of this one, I might be able to get through this. Grabbing Chris's plans over at his site again, which is linked below in the description. All right, everybody, enjoy. So I'm going to build this backwards from how Chris at Third Coast Craftsman built it. And by that, I mean I'm going to start with the run versus the actual coop itself. Mainly just because the run comes together really quick, and it's just kind of nice to have, 80% of the mass of the project done, and it looks good. So here I'm starting with the two longer walls of the run, and these are the front and back walls effectively. Now they're exactly the same except for the front wall, which is the wall further away from me, is going to end up having the mandel in it. It's easy to do both of these at the same time because then you're cutting two pieces at the exact same time. So while you already have the angle, because the roof line has, I believe it was a 15-degree slope here, it's easy to go ahead and cut both at the same time and save yourself a little time. You can see I made a little mistake here with that first brace. It's about a ½ inch off. I'll fix that later on in the project. Now I'm jumping to the end wall of the run. All of these are built exactly the same. It's butt joints with galvanized nails holding everything together. I do come back, and when I'm assembling everything, I throw some decking screws as well as some structural lags just to pull everything together. But as far as wood goes, you can see there's pressure treated plate. That will something that's consistent on all of the walls. But besides the pressure treated plate, everything else is just normal 2x4s. And I pre-treated everything with some Johnson's water sealer just to give it a little bit of color and some protection as well. And this is the fourth and final wall. This is just a little 2-foot extension just because the run itself is a little bit wider than the coop. And every single wall got some of these angle braces just to add some rigidity to keep it from racking. With the run walls all framed out, the next thing to do is to cover them with hardware cloth. And this is a very important distinction. You want to use hardware cloth for this. You do not want to use chicken wire. Hardware cloth is both a thicker gauge wire as well as the spacing between the wires is a lot narrower. And this is really what's going to keep out any predators that would be getting into your chickens. Chicken wire, contrary to the name of it, really isn't an effective barrier to keeping out predators. The other thing you'll notice is I'm doing this, I left about 6 to 8 inches of wire sticking off the bottom, and that's because that's actually going to get buried directly into the ground to deter anything from digging into the pen. And for securing the hardware cloth, I'm just using 7/16 crown staples and this pneumatic nailer. The other thing that made this go really, really fast was that little cutoff wheel. You could do this with a grinder, you could do this with tin snips. There's a whole bunch of ways you could cut this, but that little cutoff wheel was really convenient and fast for cutting or for trimming all of the hardware cloth to fit the walls. So that completes the run walls with the exception of assembling them and completing and installing the man door. But I'm going to hold off on the assembly for now, and I'm going to go ahead and jump over to working on the actual coop. Okay, back to my driveway to frame up the front and rear wall of the coop itself. And same thing here. So anything that's going to be coming in contact with the ground is going to be pressure treated. So in this case, the boards that are going across the bottom, which are mainly only there to act as a way to attach the hardware cloth, are all pressure treated, as well as the 4x4 post, which act as the main support for the structure itself. Everything else is just going to be regular old 2x4s from a big box store. And again, I'm using galvanized nails in this framing nailer just to kind of get everything together quickly, but I am coming back with decking screws and in a few strategic places using some construction legs as well to make sure everything's nice and secure. Now I'm getting ready to connect the front and the rear walls of the coop by putting the floor in between them, and I'm just setting these blocks with clamps to make sure that everything's level where it should be. Now hindsight is 2020. You can see I'm trying to level the two sides in my driveway. Obviously my driveway is not a level surface. This would have been a lot easier if I had just done this inside my garage using the flat level floor. But here I am struggling trying to make sure everything is level and plumb so that I can go ahead and attach the two walls with the flooring in between. And I'll talk about this more in my other video about the things I like and don't like about this coop, or better said, the things I would do differently if I built this again. But one of the things is you'll notice right here, all of these boards that I'm putting in, I didn't seal these with the water sealer, and they have no color to them. And they've been outside for a year. They're completely fine. I will say though, if they had been treated and they had a little bit of color to them, I think overall it would have looked a little bit better than these aging and kind of graying out. But that's always something I can go back and fix if I really want to. Alright, so now we're on site one of the chicken coop, and I say site one, and I'll talk about this more in my other video, but I actually ended up moving the entire chicken coop and run to the entire opposite side of my property, which I'm absolutely ecstatic I did. It's a much better location overall. I could see it from my house. I can watch the chickens while I'm eating dinner or sitting out on my deck. It's overall way better, but it did pose some challenges. Anyways, here I am with the framing that you saw me put together in the driveway for the front and rear wall and the floor, and now I'm just stick framing in the walls. And as I mentioned at the beginning, I didn't design this coop myself. I actually just bought the plans from Chris over at Third Coast Craftsman, and I have to say overall the plans were great, especially for the framing components of the coop. Super easy to follow, very accurate cut list, and it did make the framing go really quick. There were other aspects of the plans that were a little bit harder. Nothing that would deter me from buying the plans. I'm super happy that I had bought these plans. I'm overall ecstatic with the final product and how the coop looks. Are there a few things that could have made the plans a little bit easier? Yeah, of course there are, but again, overall, really happy with the plans. Chris did a great job, and I'd absolutely buy these again. And when I've been talking, you've been watching me frame up what is the most complicated wall in this entire build. So this is the left side wall if you're looking at the front of the coop, and it's going to house the two windows, as well as you can see this rectangle in the middle of the screen right now, which essentially acts as the front wall from inside the coop for the chickens to access the laying boxes. So the plans made this super easy. Honestly, I think anybody can build this coop using these plans. And as you can see, this wall, while it has a lot of parts in it, it overall isn't that complicated. So anybody thinking of a coop and liking the design of this one, I'd highly recommend buying these plans. Now, you don't need a framing nailer to do this project. You can obviously do this, just with a hammer and nails, or you could even do this just with all decking screws. But I bought this framing nailer, got to be like 4 years ago now, to build my shed, and I have to say this has been one of the best investments I've ever made. This thing saves me so much time on projects, and also like it saves you from fatigue too. And now I'm just laying out the nesting boxes here, and you'll probably notice in the next frame or two here that I actually nail in one of these uprights to the wrong side of the line, and it's quite crooked. I'd like to say I fixed that one by the end of the project, but when I give you the walkthrough to the coop, you'll notice that that upright is actually still crooked to this day. Okay, so jumping ahead a little bit, I went ahead and I put some of the siding up. This is just T111 exterior siding that I nailed up. You can see there's an overhang on the front there to account for the nesting boxes. And the one other thing that I did here off camera is I framed up the roof, and I put some paint on 2 of the walls, and that's because I'm getting ready to connect the run, which I've started to lay out on the ground so that I have everything in place to put it together relatively quickly. But before I do that, I wanted to point out 2 quick things on the roof. So on the wall with the windows, you'll notice I ended up cutting these notches so that the roof actually sat at the right slope because of the way the 2x4s were coming through it. And on the main wall that goes into the run, I actually just ripped the 2x4 at the right angle. In retrospect, I should have ripped both 2x4s rather than spending the time on that notch. Now I'm starting with the run assembly. So this was the smallest of the walls that we built. I just started by securing that in with a couple of lag screws to really hold it together. Then I'm going to walk in the longer part of the run, the front part, followed by the end wall, and then finally the back of the run, which is the second long wall. Now, you can see in this first location where I was building this, I actually had a nice bed of sand laid out for the chickens to be right on top of. And this is mainly because this area of my yard doesn't have great drainage, and the ground is moist quite a lot of the time, and I didn't want to have the chickens directly on the moist ground. I figured it was going to get messy. It was most likely going to breed diseases and just not be a good place for the chickens. So right now I'm setting this up on about an 8 to 10 inch bed of sand, which would have kept the chickens high and dry. And here's a quick shot of the coop with the run fully attached. And now we're going to jump ahead a little bit, and again, I have a couple things done. So you'll see I have the roof on, and I'm starting to put in the windows now. So the roof was a really easy process. My dad came over. I think we put the entire roof on in like 45 minutes. All we're using here is a corrugated asphalt product, very similar to metal roofing. You just screw it on, and it goes on super easy. And now I'm just installing standard shed windows that I bought off of Amazon. And again, really easy, just nailing these in. And that will be the end of the windows. And here you can see I have a little helper helping me get some paint before we go ahead and put all the trim on this, and it becomes impossible to paint these areas. So I did make sure to get a good coating of exterior paint on everything before the trim went on. So at this point the coop's done with the exception of 3 doors. We need 1 door for the laying box, which is what I'm constructing right now. And then we're going to need another door for the main door for the coop, and then a man door to access the run itself. The main coop door and the laying box door are going to be constructed the same way, using the T111 siding and then some pine trim, which I went ahead and I painted everything first, and then I brad nailed the trim to the T111, and then I flipped it over, and I did use some 1-inch screws to screw everything in from the back. And I'm not showing it, but the two main doors that give you access directly to the coop to clean it out are made in exactly the same way. So with the two doors done for access to the actual coop itself, the only thing left is to build the man door. Now, I'm doing this the old-fashioned hard way, just with hand tools, just to show that it can be done without any real power tools, being a circular saw or whatnot. Now, I am going to use an impact driver to drive in the screws, but I think that's probably something that everybody has handy. The other reason I'm building this with hand tools is because it's just good to get in practice, and what better project to get practice in than an outdoor project, a chicken coop, something that you're not going to be looking really closely at, so if you do make a mistake, it's not the end of the world. And after all that hard work, here's the finished product. I do have to say, I think this thing came out absolutely great, and there's only a few minor things that I would change here and there to make it just a little bit more functional. But I'll talk about those in my other video, as well as give you a more detailed walk through the entire coop. Thanks for watching, everybody. If you like this video, please consider subscribing.